Find a seat, please. Find a seat. Plenty of seats. Plenty of seats. Find a seat. Find a seat. Okay, I want to welcome everyone to the March 13th, yes, Friday the 13th, 2026 meeting of the New Jersey Antique Radio Club here at InfoAge. Are there any new faces in the audience? Anybody that I don't know? Let's see, no. Well, it seems like I know everybody that's here. But there are a couple of people here that I would like to recognize. I'd like them to stand because they know who they are. And that would be former president of the New Jersey Antique Radio Club, Jim Whartonby, and his wife. She's there. Oh, she's there. Oh, look at that. I didn't even ask for a round of applause, and you all gave it to him. That's very good. Say, Jim, no, don't sit down yet. Jim, don't. But Jim, what years were you president of the club? Uh-oh, it's another trick question now.
Tough question. 97, 98.
Okay. And
I was one-term president.
One term.
That's the way to do it.
One term. And what was your predecessor? Who was that? This club was Ludd?
No, Ludd was my vice president. Tony.
Oh, it was Tony then.
It was the founder.
Yeah, Tony. Okay. Yeah, Tony. And then Phil took over after you, correct? No. No, wasn't there another Jim? No, it was Phil? Okay. And then I was Phil's vice president. I thought there was someone else for a short period of time, too. Yeah, okay, whatever. We're old people, and it's easy to forget. Okay. All right. The club has been around since 92, July of 92. All right. Let's see. All right, so we're happy to see you guys, and now you're in Arkansas, correct? Hot Springs? And what caused you to move out there?
Well, I was working for Erickson in Research Triangle Park in North Carolina. And writing was on the wall that Sony was going to merge with Erickson on cell phones. So all of the cell phone manufacturing development went to Japan. So Ruth is originally from Japan.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Okay.
She was born there. She spent most of her time here in New Jersey.
Okay.
So we just went there.
Okay, so I didn't know that whole story, to tell you the truth. Okay. Well, thanks for being here. We do appreciate it. Okay. All right. Yes, I should mention that, right? Not to say that Jim came out here just to deliver TSMs to us, very kindly to donate it to the club. But you are visiting friends and relatives, correct?
120 volumes.
And he brought the the TSMs. They are Sam's transistor radio books that we use as schematics, okay? And a lot of us are getting into that. As a matter of fact, our presenter this evening is very heavy into mid-century radios. So the schematics will be very helpful to Joe DeVito, too, and a whole bunch of us who are getting into it. Our vice president is also. So, what's going to happen with the TSMs is well, I'll call him a good friend of mine, Jerry Ngordo, who's a club member from Long Island. He just loves to scan. He's a scan master of it. We should make that in the banner, scan master of NJARC. And Jerry will be taking the TSMs that Jim brought out and donated to the club, and he will be tearing them apart and scanning them and putting them on our website. And he'll also be putting combs to the original, putting them back as a book. It'll be a flat book again. And we'll be able to use them in our library here too. So, thanks again. Thanks all around. To you and to Jerry too. All right. Infirmary report. Member John Riccolo, me, made some visits to see former Vice President Sal Brazindi at the Care One rehab facility in Homedale. And we went a few times. And John went about a week ago, and it's not looking good. Seems to be a long struggle for Sal. When I went, it was a matter of him sleeping. I was just watching him sleep. I didn't want to disturb him, and then I said, well, at least let me go up in front of him. And I touched his hand, and he came awake. And it was nice to realize that he knew who I was. And we had a little, very short chat, and then he went back to sleep again. And I believe John had the same experience with Sal. From his wife, we determined that he's not eating on his own, and he needs to be fed. So that is the sad latest that we have to report to you. So again, if anyone else that should be on the infirmary report, please let me know. Just send me an email so we can talk it up and let people, express their feelings about it. We're an old, aging club, and it's nice to know about each other's infirmary prospects. Not all the aches and pains, because we all have those. We don't have to share them. We've got plenty of them. All right, on to old business. Dues are due, and by February 28th, as last call for dues was, but as usual, some members had not paid on time. Please pay your dues so that you can be reinstated, because you were taken off the communicator as of the 28th. And you want to get back, you want to be part of our extensive library of information and schematics. I'm talking to you folks out there, okay? Please, pay your dues. We don't like taking them in the middle of March. It's kind of ridiculous, since dues are due January 1st. The measly $25, we've held that number for a long time, So please. And look, we do understand there's times when people come in all excited to the club, and they spend a year around. They want to cruise around. They want to see what's available. Maybe they're not interested. They don't want to be interested anymore. I'll say it again. I said it at the last meeting. Please, if you don't want to be with us, that's okay. But how about just a little note of resignation, so we're not chasing you, because it gets silly after a while. All right. Okay, moving on. Harry's not here. Ray, how are we doing after the blizzard of 2026 and the power outages here at InfoAge and RTM in particular? Did you hear what I said? Now, I'm just asking, Harry's not here, so I'm going to ask you. The blizzard of 2026 caused a hell of a lot of problems here at InfoAge electrically. It went on and off for a couple of weeks. Are we all on today? No problems, nothing to worry about, or is it just going to happen again?
We're doing pretty good. Yep. Good. And, we're going to have the museum open on Easter Day, because we have a out that one of the days that is to get out and see the world, that falls on Easter. So we're going to be open for them.
So Easter Sunday is April 5th, I believe? And you'll be open. Okay, that's news to me, because I thought I read that it was closed, as per Colonel Mike. Oh, all right, we'll sort that out another time. All right. All right. And docent, Bill Yeager, is he a docent now? Ray. Bill Yeager, is he a docent now? All right, anybody else who's a docent, do they know if Bill is going to be, Jules, you know Bill Yeager?
You talking about Easter Sunday?
No, it's Bill Yeager.
Bill Yeager.
Is he a docent?
He's a very good docent.
So he is a docent, all right.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that now, because he had come here for a repair clinic.
I'm understanding you, unfortunately.
Okay, no problem. All right, so we have our own technical coordinator, Al Clays, who has compiled the winners of the Broadcast Band DX contest that we had back in January. Al's going to come up and he's going to present the prizes and the awards and the Bitcoin that you'll all be receiving as a first place winner. What are you laughing about?
He's going to come up, and you're going to present the
Okay.
and I'll talk.
Let me attach you.
All right. Let me step over this direction a little bit. Okay, again, this year we had a lot of solar activity. Conditions weren't that good. But we had only 15 logs from 10 contestants. That's down maybe by a third from what we normally see. So I guess we'll just sort of take these in order here. Category A, crystal sets, Mario Volpe was first place. Mario here?
Thank you very much. No, Al, I couldn't get it going. We didn't figure it out. Al had looked at it.
Yeah, this is an Airwave Explorer, is the
Yeah,
set
this
he's
is
got.
We're working on that.
Class B is primitive radios. Neville built a homebrew regen out of sub-miniature tubes, and was good for 6,700 miles with that thing. So he done good.
It's in the back if anyone wants to try playing with it at the intermission. Fun. Good old squealer.
Class D was TRF radios. Joe Devonshire up in Maine was good for first place with his Atwater Kent Model 40, 8,631 miles. So he did a good job there. Class E is home entertainment tube sets. Dave Webb was first place there. I don't know, is Dave here? Maybe, maybe not. He's local, but anyhow, with a Philco 38.7. F is tube-type communication receivers. We'll save on postage here because Joe Devonshire won that category with his Hallicrafters S25 Super Defiant at 7,940 miles. G is the super lights. Henry Sontag was first place there with an ATS Mini. H is Class H is All-American 4.56s. Frank Fesco down in Florida took that award. 93.25 miles. And then J was the traditional analog transistor radios, and Frank also won that. 97.19 miles, that's also first overall. So 97.19. And I think he's a slight geographic advantage from Florida, but he does a good job anyway.
He gets a lot of cuties.
Let's see, one more. In the open category, Bill Sloma was good for 84.51 miles with an SDR play, little SDR hooked to a computer. He did have an interesting terminated loop antenna outside, so it must have worked for him pretty well. And that's it.
We don't have it. Okay.
That should be there. Bottom. Okay, well, I'll get it to you.
Yeah. No problem.
Okay. Okay, thank you. I'll let you remove the microphone.
Could we have another round of applause for Al for doing all the hard lifting? And putting the awards all together, and we'll be shipping them out, all right? Maybe the DX members, we'll make sure they have to come pick them up if they really want their awards. Is that a problem, Joe? No? No problem? Frank, is that a problem? I'm talking to our DX members. Okay. All right. On to new business. Our new business is our Spring Hamfest Swap Meet show, and that's this Sunday at Parsippany PAL. All right. How many are vending this Sunday? Oh, there he is. There he is. Okay. Okay, now, I see Darren as a vendor, and I know Bobby is a vendor. And Matt, why are you vending?
I'm vending because I have stuff to sell.
What do you mean you have stuff to sell? Come on up here and tell us about the stuff to sell.
Hello. I have a handful of things to sell because they were, well, I guess I'm donating them. There was a 99-year-old CBS engineer that passed last week, Robert Mueller, and his sons had contacted the TCA to save some of his stuff, and the TCA guy is in Virginia, and he's like, is there anybody in New Jersey? Just see what you can save. And I'm like, well, I'm in New Jersey. And one other guy responded, and the other guy took most of the tubes. He's a ham, and he could use those. And I took a bunch of TV junk, CRTs, but they also had Vidicons and iconoscopes and interesting things. But along with all that was a lot of his tools, Heathkits. So he had a lot of Heathkit generators, and he had some audio gear, Heathkit receivers, and a lot of good books and stuff. And I'm like, well, I don't want them, but they're going in the dumpster if I don't take them. So they're in my car, so they'll be at the, I'll have a club-specific table, and everything that's, marked club is all 100% to the club, so, it just didn't want it to go in the dumpster. It was too nice for that, so.
You want to tell them about what we're going to do for the video?
Sure.
Just so we're out there.
Radio Wild has volunteered to help us with getting to the monetization bump. You might have saw on the communicator last night that I was asking you guys to watch to get over the, 4,000 hours in a year of consumed video. And when we get to that point, then from that point forward, anytime we're watched, it's counting towards the monetization that YouTube would pay us for videos watched. So it's a one-time requirement to get there, and we always seem to be hovering around like 30 or 2,600 hours, because it's a calendar year, so it knocks off at the front end, right? So Bob's going to do his normal, after event thing, but give us the content to put on our channel and put a shout out on his channel, and then because he has more pull than we do right now, he's already at that bump, and then once we bump back, I guess he'll go back to being Radio Wild, and we'll thank him profusely, and I'll keep.
So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to do all the heavy lifting. I'm going to take the video and process it, edit it, and then send it to Matt to put it up on the NJARC channel. Hopefully some of my people, I've been getting a lot of new visitors lately, so hopefully I get some of them to kind of transfer over to us and get more hours watched and get us closer to that monetization thing. Because once we get, I've been monetized for a long time, but once you get that monetization status,
it's for life.
Locked in. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter how many hours you watch. If you watch a lot or you watch a little. So that would be kind of income for the club. Not a lot of income, but you got
No, we're
kind of
not.
crawl before you walk.
Yeah, we're not going to get rich, but it's free. So what's up,
Do
Jules?
they count actual watched hours? So if you just look for a few minutes to see what's there, that doesn't do much.
I don't think they publicly tell you the exact metric on how it works, because they give you a week delay, and it says they give you a week delay because they're trying to check for valid watches, and I don't know what that is. I imagine it's those minutes do count, but I think they have some way of knowing whether it's a bot or whether it's someone watching or whether someone turned it on and went to sleep and let it roll, because they're like, well, you're not moving the mouse, or I don't know, but
A friend of mine has a channel, not regularly, but she said she encourages us to watch the whole video, because that's what the algorithm does.
yeah, I know it approves.
Put it on and walk away.
I know it counts as more, and that's what I was saying, is every one of the ones I've put up for the last almost year, I've made playlists, right? So if they're show and tell, there's a show and tell playlist. If they're from a specific year, all the ones of a specific year are in there, and there's one that's literally all of it, right? So
Let's just follow what she said. I hope you don't actually have to watch the total video.
I don't think you have to watch the entirety of it, but I think it counts more. Like there's different kinds of things, like engagement versus
You rarely
content.
watch everything.
Right.
But you might stop the last.
You can put the video on and then just leave it on for 30 seconds and just leave the computer on, walk away and make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
Yeah.
Like over with your friends and going, as long as that viewer's running, that's what YouTube is looking for. They can't watch you watch the video.
Well, I know that. Yeah.
They just want the whole thing watched.
Right. I don't think you have to watch literally every second. It's just that, again, it counts as a better watch. It's a better engagement. But anyway, anything else while I'm up here? But I appreciate everybody who has watched it so far, by the way. It makes it worth actually doing a lot of work and knowing someone actually watches it.
And really appreciate, Bobby, you doing that, Radio Wild, doing that for our club, for us, and of course, all the work that Matt's been doing just in general on all of this.
Well, this will help take some of the load off of Matt, because he's been working real hard on this stuff.
Yeah, he certainly does, and he's one of those people that, what the hell is that they do? It starts with a W.
Work?
Oh, that's it, work, yes. That's right, yeah, whereas most of us don't. Okay. All right, let's move on. Okay. So, all right. Please come out and support your club this Sunday. Yes, it is Sunday. Don't ask me why it's Sunday, but it is this Sunday, not Saturday. We're going to see if this Sunday works out. What I'm getting from feedback of vendors in particular is that, well, it's going to be easier travel and unloading. And I said, you know, you're right. And it's going to be a nice day. So it'll be easy getting in and getting home. And of course, that'll be the same for the buyers too. So please come out and support your club. We are almost sold out. I've got, I think, one cancellation, so I've got one table available. But it's looking good. It's looking good. Okay. I hope you have all read this month's broadcaster, Jersey Broadcaster. Remember it? This year, Wall Township requires all clubs and museums under the umbrella of InfoAge to post a mission statement with the township as to what our purpose is. I'm not going to bore you with all of the details of it because you can read it on the Jersey Broadcaster, and please do. It was put together by Jules, Harry, and me. It's a little more than just a statement. It's telling us pretty much what we're all about. And it's really required for InfoAge because they need to send it off to Wall Township because, you know, we are within the umbrella of InfoAge, but they have to answer to Wall Township. And, you know, if if Wall's not happy with us, we're not going to be here. All right, InfoAge will not be what it is. It could be, you know, adequate housing. It could be high rises. It could be condominiums that you can see the Shark River from. So we'd like not that to happen.
Yeah, we don't want to turn this into a pickleball court. Yeah, right?
Yeah, that'll be the next thing. Well, they have the pickleball court over here at the Blaisdell College. So, all right. Let's see. Is there any other new business anyone wants to speak on? No. Okay. All right. On to the Ham Shack Corner. All right. So, well, the spring season is starting up. All right. Tomorrow, Cherryville Hamfest at North Haddon, Hunterdon High School, Clinton, Annandale.
It's easily accessible from 78 and Route 31. It's the old North Hunterdon High School.
Yeah, it's sponsored by the Cherryville Repeaters Association, and it's open at 8 a.m., and the price is $8 entrance, like ours. Bobby, you sound like you've been to this.
It's a decent regional fest. I haven't been there in a few years, but most of it's indoors, and sometimes they have people on a part of it. Most of it's indoors, so if it's going to rain or something tomorrow, it should be okay. A lot of old buzzard deer, and there's a lot of new stuff there too, so you get to see a little bit of everything. Okay. It's a worthy fest to go see.
Okay. Is anybody going tomorrow? No? Oh, too bad. I was hoping to give you some flyers for our event.
We're saving our money for our event.
That's a good idea. A very good idea. All right. And of course, the next day, Sunday, the 15th, our Hamfest Swap Meet Show is the following day at Parsippany PAL. Our vendors set up at 7:15. Doors open at 8 a.m. And like I said before, the entrance fee is $8. Seems a little stiff, but it's what everybody's charging, and the way the business is going, we just need that money. You may know that from our fall Hamfest Swap Meet Show at PAL, they require a certificate of sanitation from the township of Parsippany Troy Hills. And it costs $100 to have a lady come in, and she didn't even give me a certificate. I didn't even see her. Just go over to where we're giving out the bagels and coffee, and to make sure that Fred Warren is wearing his blue gloves. So that was the important thing.
And and it's not working on a clock.
He's not. Darren?
I think in New York, I think in New York, they refer to that as a VIG.
As what?
A VIG, instead of VIG, you gotta pay the.
Oh, VIG?
A VIG.
Oh, yeah, you don't have VIG? Nobody down south uses VIG, or in Patterson? They don't use that word?
No, I'm just thinking that.
Or Newark?
When you gotta, pay the tribute or whatever to the town.
Yeah, yeah.
That's extortion.
Yeah, can't we call it extortion? Extortion, yeah, same.
Yeah. So that's what we get to deal with. Speaking of Darren, your auction, how did it go today? Or your sale today?
Oh, the estates, well, it's actually going on tomorrow, too.
Ah, you want to make a commercial? Come up.
The auction was last time.
Oh, you can talk about that, so.
So we had an auction. Oh, you don't need. Yes, okay. All right. Well, now you can hear me. All right. So we had an auction last weekend out at Kutztown, in the White Room, where the Kutztown Radio Swap Meet auction usually is held. We do usually an extra or one or two auctions there a year. It was fairly well attended. Stuff sold. There was an interesting array of stuff, expensive and inexpensive both. And if you weren't there, you should have been there. In addition, we're running an estate sale over in Manalapan Township, about 20 minutes from here, right off of Woodville Road, between Woodville and Main Street, Englishtown. It's right on the Manalapan-Englishtown border. And there are some radios, and there's an old RCA phonograph. And there's a lot of tools. There's a lot of mud. Well, we sold one of the tractors. There's a lot of mud and a lot of digging. And there's wire, and there's solder, and there's tools, and there's...
I haven't seen a bush hog in probably 20
We have a brush hog, yep. There's still a brush hog available. We've got a 3-point hitch tractor with a 3-point hitch. Yeah, there's lots to be had. And we will be there tomorrow from 10 to 2 at 324 McCaffrey Road in Manalapan. It's on estatesales.net. You'll see the signs.
And the pictures.
And the pictures, if anyone's interested, so. Oh, yeah, I don't want to walk away with that.
All right, thank you, Darren. Okay.
Can vouch for this one.
Oh, he was there, eh? He bought one of the tractors.
Did you buy the tractor that was sat in the middle?
No. Was it beyond belief, Joe?
It was. It was sort of like if you took Pete Graves'
Yes,
yard
it's a la Pete Grave, yes.
and you added a Spanish hacienda house to it.
Yes. Yeah.
Amazing, absolutely amazing, isn't it? It's amazing what we get ourselves into, in essence.
You remember that song that Pat Boone with Speedy Gonzales, the mouse, living in the...
No, I'm too young for that.
Yeah, this was a hacienda, and I think a lot of mice had been living, cats and...
Oh, great. Great.
It needs work. It's a fixer up.
Yeah. Piles are, piles are falling down.
All right, there's no other, I have no other Handfest information. Other than come out and support your Handfest club tomorrow. I'm sure, sorry, at Cherryville if you can, and at our own on Sunday. All right, listen, let's have a very short break and sale of our 50/50 tickets. All right, and then we'll get underway with our presentation for this evening. Very short break, guys. Short, okay? Please, short. so easy. Six in total, so $18 to the winner. $18 to the winner? Yep. Thank you much. Folks, let's get going, folks. Let's get going. Enough flap jarring. Sit down. Find a seat. Find a seat. We got a big pot here. Come on. And the winner is... Find a seat. Find a seat. Find a seat. Find a seat. We did that already. We did? Yeah. Okay. Nobody tells me anything. Dave. He won an election.
If my house is burning down, is it a Republican fire or a Democratic fire?
Yeah, well, you stop and ask him. Find a seat, guys. Come on, find a seat. Find a seat. Find a seat. Come on, find a seat. Okay, here we go. We're going to pull the winning ticket.
Here it comes.
Here it comes. And the winner is Dave. Dave, come here. Yeah, you. Yeah, you. You're on your feet, so. For $18 big dollars. $18 big dollars, guys. Big, big. You all saving your money for Cherryville and for PAL.
All right, there's the bubble gum I put on mine.
Come spend it in Manalapan tomorrow.
And coming to JD Auctions sale. And the winning ticket is 4130. Uh-oh, what's this? Friday the 13th? 666. Sign of the devil. Oh! Uh-oh, somebody's got to put their glasses on. Too late, too late. I got to pull the next ticket. Six.
666.
Ah, trust but verify. Congratulations, Don. There you are.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Okay. All right, folks. Our presentation is going to start any second now, so don't disappear. Listen to me. Listen. I want to really explain a few things. And one of them is we are doing Plan B, maybe even verging on Plan C here this evening. For whatever reason, we could not find the club projector, I'll call it that way, nor the extension cord that would always come with it, you know, the big orange one that you used to see. So somewhere, probably in InfoAge somewhere, it was lent out to another club. I don't believe it was absconded or stolen in any means, but please, all right, just please bear with us. And I want to thank Plan B, the instigator of Plan B, which is our very own Matt Reynolds this evening, who came up with this idea of putting the big monitor up front so that we could continue with our presentation. The last thing on my mind was finding something like this to work with. So again, really appreciate Matt's knowledge of putting it together and gumption for saying, no, the show must go on, and sure as hell it is. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to our very own Joe DeVito. He will be giving us his presentation on everything we need to know about the repair of silver mica disease in our mid-century radios. Step right up. Have a round of applause for our very own Joe DeVito.
Okay, so I apologize for being this close to the screen here. This is about, when I planned this out, I was assuming there would be a projector screen behind me and I could easily refer to it. So I'm going to kind of peek around as we go. There'll be a few spots where I'm going to use my handy green laser pointer to point out certain things as we go along.
Why don't we come around the other side?
No, it can't be.
Yeah, will that work, Matt, if I come around the other side?
Yeah, that's just it's short.
Okay. Yeah. There we go. I do have a little more cord this way, so I'll stand so this way I'm in frame with the screen.
I just crossed the street.
Yep. Well, you know, it is Friday the 13th, and sometimes things happen, and we just got to adapt and MacGyver a solution. So, am I good?
You're fine.
Okay. So, tonight I'm going to talk about repairing IF transformers with silver mica disease, or how I stopped worrying and learned to love silver mica disease. Okay, next screen. So, I'm sure I've got to ask, what's all the fuss about? So, it's been called many things: silver mica disease, silver migration disease, the dreaded SMD. Some collectors will avoid entire eras of radios because of it. There's a guy that I followed on the one of the antique radio forums, and he was always very emphatic. He would never collect any radio with those cheesy slug-tuned IF transformers. So it can inspire a lot of passion about radios made from that era. But, you know, fear not, it's not a terminal disease. Silver mica can be fixed, the disease can be cured, and it can even be fun. Next slide. So, all radios have their quirks. Every area has its personality, and everything has its strengths and weaknesses. So, 1930s era radios have, a lot of them have wiring with natural rubber that by now has become rock hard and crumbling and will come apart if you look at it funny. 50s and 60s era sets, they have transformers that have built-in mica sheets that are failure prone. Repairing a transformer with silver mica disease is just another aspect of the restoration process. So with practice, the repair is not difficult, and it's generally not time consuming once you get familiar with the process. And in time, you too can stop worrying and learn to love silver mica disease. So for a lot of people that are maybe new to the hobby, the first question they'll have is, what are IF transformers, also known as intermediate frequency transformers? So what they're used for is to amplify the intermediate frequency. So super heterodyne radios, which are the most common sets made that you'll encounter in the hobby, are using a local oscillator to generate an internal frequency that gets mixed with all the incoming radio frequency signals that the antenna is picking up. So what they're doing is they're mixing the two, and they're going to produce an intermediate frequency. The IF transformer is meant to amplify the intermediate frequency and reject anything that's off frequency, away from that. So the most common frequency you'll encounter is 455 kilohertz. Though some car radios may use 262 kilohertz. So, next slide. So the way to think about how this works is think of it like a pond. So you throw two stones in a pond. They both produce ripples that radiate out from where the stones hit the pond. And as the ripples cross and meet each other, they'll either reinforce or cancel each other out. So what the IF transformer is doing is trying to pick out the correct ripple. So what they're doing is they're rejecting harmonics that fall outside of that frequency and reinforcing the frequency to help the vacuum tubes with the amplification process. Now, I do have a short video that I'd like to show. This does a really good job of explaining how IF transformers work. Now, the radio was made before silver mica disease was a problem, but it does such a good job of explaining what the transformers are and how they work, and most important, explain the concept of a resonant frequency circuit that I wanted to include it. So if you could go ahead and click the video. See. Oh.
So far, we've discussed how the radio signal is captured and filtered, how the oscillator works, how the antenna and oscillator signals are tuned, and how the converter tube mixes and amplifies. You've also learned that by adding the antenna and oscillator signals, we now have 4 signals at the plate of the converter, and that we only want to amplify the lower intermediate frequency. The IF transformers filter away the unnecessary frequencies and help strengthen the IF signal. Here's the first IF transformer from our antique radio. Inside is a core, capacitors, and coils. Coils are windings of very fine wire. IF transformers filter frequencies using the principle of resonance. As we've learned, when a signal runs through a capacitor and coil, the circuit tunes to the resonant frequency. The IF transformers in our radio are tuned to resonate with the IF frequency of 456 kilohertz. The 4 frequencies from the converter tube are fed to the primary coil and the primary capacitor. The circuit resonates with the IF frequency, and non-resonant frequencies are minimized. The IF signal on the primary coil creates a magnetic field that's picked up by the secondary. So now the IF signal on the primary is also on the secondary. And again, as we've learned, the coils in a transformer are magnetically coupled but electrically isolated. And we also learned that the arrangement allows for transformation. Not that kind, voltage transformation. Transformers change voltage by changing the number of windings in their coils. If the secondary has the same number of windings as the primary, the voltage remains the same. If the secondary has fewer windings, voltage is reduced. And if the secondary has more windings, voltage is increased. This is usually the case with IF transformers to help boost the signal. Voltage transformation and isolation are important characteristics of all transformers, no matter how big or small. Just as with the variable condenser, the IF transformer has variable trimmer capacitors. These are to fine-tune the primary and secondary so the transformer resonates at exactly 456 kilohertz. Fine-tuning is part of the alignment procedure, which we'll discuss in a later segment. After the first IF transformer, the IF signal is amplified by the IF tube and further refined by the second IF transformer. Unlike the complicated converter tube that oscillates, mixes, and amplifies, the IF tube just amplifies. So instead of 5 grids, it has just 3. The first grid is connected to the tube's grid cap, which gets its signal from the first IF transformer. As current passes from cathode to plate, the IF signal is amplified. Grid 2 is the screen, and grid 3 the suppressor. If you missed my segment on the converter tube, you may want to go back and watch it to learn more about how a tube functions. The second IF transformer receives the amplified IF signal from the IF tube and refines it even further, just as the first IF transformer did. The result is a strong, highly tuned IF signal that's ready for the detector tube. Be sure to join me for the next video where you'll learn all about the detector tube and AM modulation. To stay updated, please subscribe and click the bell. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. I'll see you soon.
Hook me back up. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So. Yep. So what happened? So that was a pre-war radio that is generally immune to silver mica disease. So the era that generally has this problem were made after World War II. So before pre-World War II, as they shown in the video, the transformers used a conventional trimming capacitor to fine-tune the resonant frequency. The important point there is the inductance of the coils were fixed, the capacitance was variable. After the war, once the pent-up demand for consumer radios was satisfied, there was more competition among the manufacturers, and competition heated up. So the engineers were being asked to come up with smaller, more cost-efficient parts, to make the radios smaller, make them more cost-effective, and hopefully beat out the competition. So they had a challenge ahead of them. So their solution were IF transformers using a fixed capacitance but a variable inductance. So the inductance was varied using threaded ferrite cores, also known as slugs, and the capacitors were made smaller with just a thin mica sheet with some layers of conductive silver that were imprinted on them. And basically anything can be made as a capacitor. All you need is two conductors separated by an insulator. So they took a very minimalistic approach. Small, thin sheet of mica, two capacitors on the same sheet, sharing the same mica sheet, with just a little bit of silver for the conductors on each side of the sheet. This is where the trouble begins. Next slide. So there's a very fatal design flaw in these transformers. That mica sheet capacitor, in quotes, is exposed to the open air and is not sealed in any way. So it's vulnerable to all kinds of contaminants that can get into the transformer. Dust, air pollution, humidity, and there's also high voltage that's applied to one side of that mica sheet, to the one capacitor, and low voltage or ground potential on the other side. This sets up the perfect condition for a process that's akin to electroplating. Like if you have a gold-plated ring, it's the same concept that's imprinting the gold from the source onto your ring. It's causing the silver to get dragged away from where it's supposed to be. Eventually, the migrated silver creates an electric leakage path when enough silver migrates, resulting in static, random volume fluctuations, some cases total silence. Next. So here's a portrait of a killer. This is an actual mica sheet that I took out of a radio that had silver mica disease. So you can see this here, that's your sheet of mica. Here and here, those are your silver pads that were imprinted on the mica sheet. You can't see it because I'm just taking a picture from the top side of the sheet. There's a matching silver pad underneath. And there's supposed to be a gap between this one and this one. So there's a couple of leakage pads here that caused a lot of mayhem in this radio. This is probably the worst offender right here. That is actually bridging the gap that these two were supposed to be electrically isolated from each other, and they're not. They're actually bridged to each other. And then you have another leakage path right here. And up here, you have even more mayhem going on. So this was definitely a killer to this radio. Next slide. So what does silver mica disease sound like? There's a popular YouTuber that I follow that goes by the handle Shango066. He used a set of night vision goggles to film the mayhem that goes on inside of an IF transformer. So common symptoms you'll find are random pops of static, volume changes that fade in and out without you having touched the volume. A lot of times the radio will seem to play fine for a while and then act up until the drifted silver blows itself open. It may play fine for a while, then more silver migrates, and then it acts up again. So it can be very maddening if you don't really expect it to know what's going on. So I'm going to put the microphone back over to the laptop so you can get the audio, and I'll be right back.
Silver mica disease, or SMD, is becoming a common problem when restoring mid-century vacuum tube radios. In some cases, we can actually see the problem with a pair of night vision goggles. Here you can see the arcing inside the IF can. With a good amount of patience and microsurgery, this is repairable. Silver mica disease, or SMD, is becoming...
Good. I don't know what to do now. Please hold. I've gotten good at actually IDing the sounds of silver mica. When I hear a radio playing, and I'll be like, I think you got the crap going on.
We need to fix the thing.
Okay. Okay, let's go ahead, next slide. Now, the next logical question I'm sure a lot of people will want to know is, how do you diagnose silver mica disease? There's a few ways you can do it. I've seen some people advocate using a signal tracer to listen to where the static appears in the circuit. Another option is to tap on the transformer. Now, some of you may have the high-tech percussive SMD finder, like a fellow club member generously provided me. If you don't have a percussive SMD finder, the handle of a screwdriver works just as well. Just give a good tap on the transformers, and a lot of times this can often induce this or alter the symptoms of the static just long enough so that you can get an idea of which one has it. Another option is to measure the voltage on the AVC bus. Next slide. So this is I captured a picture of a diagram of a generic radio. This is actually out of a vintage repair newsletter for technicians from back in the 1960s. And they had done a special on diagnosing they called it silver migration disease. So I was kind of surprised when I came across this article that this was actually a known problem even back in the 1950s and 60s that this happened. So I'll leave this up, and I printed off the notes so this way I don't have to keep flipping back and forth on you guys. So you have your generic circuit here. This doesn't correspond to any actual radio, it's just a generalized circuit. There's your first transformer, there's your second IF transformer there, and there's your two capacitors in each transformer. And even though they're drawing them separate here and here, in reality, they're sharing that common mica sheet in the transformer. So you have your two test points. There's test point 1 over here, test point 2 over here. In the normal radio that doesn't have silver mica disease, test point 1 should be about negative 0.5 volts if there's no signal or no station tuned in, to about negative 5 volts if you have a strong signal, according to this article. Test point 2 should be slightly negative with no station to about the same as test point 1 if you have a strong station tuned in. If you have silver mica disease in the second IF transformer, test point 1 over here will have B plus voltage leaking onto it because you got the plate fed from the IF tube into the input side of the second IF. If you have leakage, it's going to come out with B plus voltage on this side, so that's going to have B plus on it. Test point 1, if it rises above plus 5 volts, give or take, you probably won't receive any stations, and you'll hear the hallmark static of silver mica disease, that crackling that the Shango video that I was showing you was displaying. Now, if on the other hand, you had silver mica disease here on the first IF transformer, what you'll find is voltage at test point 1 will be more negative than normal, and test point 2 will be anywhere from several volts less negative than test point 1 or even positive to compare to test point 1, depending on the amount of leakage that's going on here in the first IF transformer. And if the leakage is great enough to make this test point 2 positive, you may actually kill the local oscillator. And I actually have a radio that Bob Bennett helpfully suggested. This was before I understood as much about the mayhem silver mica disease can cause. I had a radio that had no local oscillator. And Bob, this is where I first learned about percussive maintenance, because he rapped on that first IF transformer and the radio came to life on cue. And he said, yeah, you got silver mica disease here in the first IF. So, go ahead. One more. I'll keep going. Okay, thank you. So fixing silver mica disease. So what do we do to fix it and deal with it? So you have a few options. The simplest options is just replace the IF transformer. This is what repair shops back in the day did. No shop would have actually taken apart a transformer back, say, in the 50s or 60s. There were aftermarket suppliers that made replacement parts, and they would just take out the bad transformer and put a new one in. You can still do that. New old stock parts can still be found sometimes. I personally found that it can be a temporary solution because a lot of cases, the aftermarket parts just copy the design flaw from the OEM parts. So I have a couple Westinghouse radios which I had repaired with new old stock parts. In about 5 years, the silver mica disease came back on those radios, much to my annoyance. So there were some better aftermarket manufacturers out there that actually tried to address the problem. And what they did was they actually tried to put real capacitors inside the transformers and not those mica sheets. I have a few from a supplier called Merit. They actually use real tubular ceramic capacitors inside the cans instead of the mica sheets. And if you're lucky enough to find one, and you use it to fix silver mica disease, it is a permanent fix because they're immune to the problem and you won't get it again. They're not always out there, but when you do find them, you hit the jackpot. So when you find one, go out and buy a lottery ticket because your luck has been really good that day. So there is another downfall to trying to replace the IF transformer, and I've actually been burned by this personally. The new old stock part, I put it in quotes, because I've occasionally been burned where I buy what's supposed to be a new old stock part, and it was actually the diseased original part that someone took out of a radio, stuck in the box, and put it aside in case maybe they wanted to rob the cores out of it for some other repair. And it was forgotten about. The shop goes out of business, the hobbyist passes away, the heirs find it, it gets sold on eBay, gets traded around at swap meets. Lucky you buys it, and I have actually seen them where it was so cleanly desoldered and it was clean, it wasn't that dusty. It looked like a new old stock part, put it in the radio, static just like the original one. Take it apart, crap, it's a bad part, it was an old part that just got stuck in the box. So the other option to avoid these pitfalls is repair the original. And this is generally, I found, the most reliable long-term solution. And next slide. So step one in the repair process, identify what you have. And my experience, they're all the same but different. So how you disassemble the transformer depends on how it was put together. So I like to collect Zenith radios. That was actually one of the first brand that I collected. And for many years throughout the 50s, Zenith built their own design in-house. So they had their own transformer designs. They're the easiest to disassemble because they use a centrally threaded stud and nut that holds everything together. You don't have to, you obviously got to take it out of the radio, but to take it apart, you just back out that nut and everything comes apart nice and easy. Many manufacturers did use third-party suppliers. A lot of the smaller manufacturers like Crosley, for example, Stuart Warner, Stromberg Carlson, they would use independent suppliers that would make the transformers for them. They just put them in the radio. And the most prolific one that I've seen is made by Automatic Manufacturing. And they're pretty easy to spot. They have a few unique characteristics about them. They often have the number 119 stamped in the top. Sometimes I'll actually say automatic, but not always. They also always use plastic locating tabs that align when they're in the factory. They were putting the guts into the can. Those locating tabs ease the assembly process. That's my personal theory why they're there, but they're very distinctive. And everything, the bad side of them is everything's held together with a brass rivet that you have to either drill or use a Dremel to grind out and then cut out that rivet so you can get everything apart. Next slide. So this is, and I don't know how well this is going to show up, but this is an example of an automatic made transformer. So right up top, it actually says 119, and there's your locating tabs. This is actually out of a Stromberg Carlson radio, which thankfully did not have silver mica disease. Next slide. So a couple of shots I took just to show what the process is like. So here I was grinding out the rivet with my Dremel, and I thinned out the metal enough so that I can use like a small flush cut, like wire cutter, just sort of chew out and remove that bottom of that rivet so that things can come apart. So here you can see there's that rivet, and see there's those locating tabs. They use like a plastic, almost like a scaffolding that holds everything together. Those are two ferrite cores. What's unique about automatic is they actually have the cores come in around the outside of the windings of the transformer. Those cores, you can see a little better here. There's the cardboard tube, and inside there is the coil for the transformer. And there's the rivet. There's a plastic sheet right there that when this was put together at the factory, that rivet held everything down tight, so everything made good electrical contact. Over here, I took the plastic top sheet out and the rivet, and there's your mica sheet ready to be slid out with a pair of tweezers. Next slide. Now Zenith, here is how Zeniths come apart. There's your nut. There's the threaded stud that I was telling you about. So basically you have your mica sheet wedged between the contacts. The nut screws into this, and the phenolic wafers are squeezed by that nut, and everything is held together tight. So you just back out the nut and just gently slide everything apart. Since I took this picture, I stopped doing it to this extent of fully disassembling it, because these wires here, they're very thin and delicate. I have occasionally spliced these back together. It's an exercise in patience, and trust me, and that too. And trust me, if you can avoid it, you don't want to have to be fixing those wires. So I just back the nut off just enough, get as small clipper as I can in there, cut the sheet in pieces, and then pull it out with a pair of tweezers. Good. So once you get your mica sheet out, and don't forget, insulate those contacts that you saw, that I was calling out in my previous slides, because without that mica sheet there, you're going to be shorting out your circuit. So you want to either clip those contacts off that had gone to the mica sheet, bend them away like with an automatic transformer, just bend them out of the way, or otherwise keep them from touching. Then you want to replace with modern capacitors to take the place of that mica sheet. You got a few options. One option is they do still make silver mica capacitors. They're different than the ones from the old day. These are coated in epoxy and hermetically sealed. They'll never get silver mica disease once you put them in the radio. In fact, they'll probably outlive the radio and everyone in this room combined. The other option, and I've used this too, and actually I'm coming to like ceramic capacitors because they're less expensive than modern silver mica capacitors, and they tend to be smaller, so that it's easier to fit them in place of the originals. There is one thing you got to keep in mind. You want to get the right dielectric of the ceramic, because there's different classes and they have different electrical characteristics. So a lot of times those Z5U or X7R, you don't want to get those because capacitance will drift as the temperature changes. So once you line everything up, if you were to use, say, Z5U or X7R, radio warms up, the capacitance drifts, your resonance goes away. So you want to get, and I've seen both used, and sometimes they're used together as C0G or NP0. I forget what C0G stands for. NP0 is supposed to stand for negative positive zero, basically meaning no drift. It's meant to be indifferent to what temperature the ceramic is being exposed to. Okay, next slide. So the other thing you got to determine is what value capacitor do you use in the circuit. Sometimes You can get that from the manufacturer schematics. I've seen an RCA radio that I had repaired silver mica on. They actually had it on the schematic. I didn't notice it until after I put everything together, because I was so used to not seeing it, it didn't occur to me to look for it and pay attention to it. Or if you're lucky, if it's not on the manufacturer's service literature, sometimes you'll get an enthusiast that takes a good one apart, measures the mica sheet to find out what the capacitance is, draws up a little PDF of a schematic and publishes it on the internet. There's a guy that did that for a bunch of Zenith transformers. Unfortunately, his website's been taken down. I was lucky enough that I got screenshots of all his schematics that he did before he took it down, or it went away. But in most cases, you're never going to know what those values are. Even if the manufacturers had no incentive to do it back in the day, because no one would have taken apart the transformers to try to replace it with new capacitors. It would have been too much labor time for the shop. And even if the manufacturer wanted to, like in the case of a lot of manufacturers that use third-party suppliers, the manufacturer probably wouldn't have even known what the capacitors were the supplier used. The supplier would have had no reason to tell the manufacturer, so it never made it to the service literature. So you have a few choices. What I did early on was trial and error. Pick a value, install it. Can I make the radio work? Yes. Happy smiley face, radio's good to go. Doesn't work, crap. Take the capacitor out, try a different value, try it again, until eventually got to happy smiley face. There's the guy, Shango 066, whose night vision goggle video I showed you. He is a very strong advocate for using variable trimmer capacitors. Temporarily tack them in to the circuit once you put the transformer back in the radio and hook everything up. Align it using the trimmer capacitors. Desolder the trimmers without disturbing the adjustment. Measure what you set the capacitance to and get the closest fixed capacitor, reinstall that, touch up the alignment a second time. I looked at that and I'm like, this is insane, that's too much work. And I'm not a big fan of pain, so I figured there's gotta be a better way of doing this. So my personal method that I came up with is measure the coil's inductance once you get the bad mica sheet out. Plug the reading into a resonant frequency calculator, solve for the capacitance that you need to make the circuit resonate at the IF frequency that the radio manufacturer designed it to resonate at. I usually try not to move the ferrite slugs unless I find that someone has turned the slug all the way to one end of its travel or another. If they did, I try to move it a little more central just so that I'll leave some room to make some adjustments after things back together. The reason I do that is there's inevitably going to be a little bit of measurement error with the inductance meter that I use, and you're also going to have to round up to the nearest value of capacitor you can actually buy, and you'll see more on that in a few slides from now. So here's a screenshot of my resonant frequency calculator, and let's go ahead and click on it. So if you scroll up a little bit, here, I'll scroll up for you. Yeah. There you go, thanks. You got it? Okay. Yeah, so basically, they give you, can you scroll down a little bit? I just want to show the other way. There you go, that's good, stop right there, thanks. So here's the input fields. You can input the inductance that you measured, select your units. I blanked this out. By default, they put in a capacitance. I just blank that out and select the units I want it to give me the results in, and put in the target, the resonant frequency the designer of the radio said it's supposed to be resonating at. Hit the calculate button, and it'll actually give you the capacitance that you need to make that transformer resonate with the proper frequency. And you do it you measure both sides of the transformer, because remember, there's 2 coils in there, and you solve for capacitance for each coil. So, next slide. Oh, actually, Alt-Tab. there you go. So, perfect, thank you, honey. So,
He practiced, I didn't.
yeah. So, I have a couple of inductance meters that I use to figure this out. This is the better quality one. It's an Atlas LCR 45. And this one is good because it uses, I mean, it can actually identify mystery parts. So if you have something you're not sure, is it a resistor, is it a choke, is it a coil, you can actually connect the leads to it and it'll tell you what it is and what it thinks the value is. And I've used that and it's pretty accurate. Next slide. This one is also good. It's an LC200A. And this one, it's fewer features, but it's under $100, but still more than accurate enough to get the job done. And if I break it, drop it, lose it at a repair clinic, the world doesn't come to an end and I'm not out a lot of money for it. And you can see I'm actually using it in action right here to get a inductance reading off of that side of the transformer. So you got connected to the two terminals, and it just tells me what the inductance is. Next slide. So here's a sample calculation. So this is the actual formula in case you wanted to know. So C is capacitance, F, lowercase f, that's your frequency that you want to resonate at, L is your measured inductance. If you like pain, you can use the formula, do the math, and come up with the actual capacitance. If you like working without pain, which is me, you use the resonant frequency calculator app. So I have a little example here where I had measured 1.031 millihenries for my IF transformer. The radio that this was going to go into resonated using an IF frequency of 455 kilohertz, plugged everything into the app, and it told me it was 118.67 picofarads would be needed to make that side of the transformer resonate at 455 kilohertz with the inductance that I had measured. So either way you do it, you're probably going to have to round up your capacitance to a value that you can actually buy on Mauser or DigiKey or wherever you get your eBay, wherever you get your capacitor from. The odds are very low. You're going to find an exactly 118.67 picofarad capacitor to get it to resonate on the as measured value. Next slide. So the next step is you want to put everything together back in your radio. So you mount the IF can back in the radio the way it came out, and this is a reminder, make sure you had marked the orientation in the radio before you took everything apart and took pictures and everything, because you want to put everything back together the way it came out. Solder the new capacitors to the CAN's terminals underneath the chassis, and make sure that you put the right capacitor to the right set of terminals on the CAN. Personally, I like to make notes right on the side of the CAN, so this way I make a little more foolproof to make sure everything goes back to where it's supposed to go. Next slide. So here is a transformer that I had done a silver micro repair on. There's our killer right there that's been taken out of the transformer. I had measured 1.23 millihenries. Sorry, I have to apologize for my chicken scratch. My writing's been compared to Egyptian hieroglyphics. But the 1.23 millihenries, the app had calculated that I would need a 100 picofarad capacitor. So I wrote it on this side of the CAN, so I know that these two terminals that line up with this side is where that capacitor goes. So I like to repair ahead. So basically, I'll take apart the transformer from a radio that had silver micro disease, get this sheet out, measure everything up, calculate what I would need, put it in my box. So when I have to do the next repair, I just grab a transformer out of my box of already exercised transformers and put it in the radio. And this way I can remember what was supposed to go in that transformer. And I can also do a sanity check and just double check to make sure I'd measured everything right and that I wrote things down on the right side of the transformer before it goes in the radio. Next slide. So how do you install them? Here's what I usually do. So here's that Westinghouse radio that I mentioned before. I'd actually had the forethought of saving the original Westinghouse transformers. So I took out the mica sheet, did the measurements, and put in my 100 picofarad silver mica modern capacitors. They went to the terminals along with everything else that went to those terminals and the transformer. Next slide. So once you have everything reinstalled, you still have to do a final alignment. Because like I said before, the odds are pretty good that you're going to have to touch it up a little bit because you'll have a little bit of error when you do the measurement. You'll have the round to value capacitor that you can actually buy on the supplier to actually put in the radio. But so you would just proceed like you would with any normal alignment, just follow the manufacturer's alignment instructions. And generally, if all went well, you probably won't need to make a lot of adjustment. I found generally less than one turn of the ferrite slug to get everything lined up, usually quarter turn or so, just enough to get everything to line up. And next slide. So some final thoughts. It may seem complex, but with the right tools, it's not difficult. So I've been able to remove a diseased mica sheet in about an hour once it's out of the radio. The most challenging part, because I don't always enjoy desoldering, but the most of the work is just getting the transformer out of the radio. But the mica sheet, that's actually not that difficult once you get a little practice with the Dremel to know how much to grind out that rivet, or with the Zenith, just unscrewing the nuts, because they're like super easy to do. And I find it's very satisfying to take these things apart and get the radio playing again, especially considering how a lot of people have some very emotional opinions about how they don't like dealing with silver mica disease. It's satisfying to get these things working again. So I say give it a try, and with practice and time, you too will stop worrying and learn to love fixing silver mica disease. Yes?
Question. Well, Heskey's W2MQ here. There were two excellent presentations. Well, when you mentioned the two options, there's actually a third option that you probably should or maybe know about, and that is, and I've done this many, many times with these K-trans, you shunt the whole transformer out of the circuit. So what you do basically is you change it to an impedance coupler.
Oh, like with a capacitor and resistor?
Instead of going through this whole process, what you do is you basically electrically remove the IF of the circuit on both sides. And then what you do on the primary side, I found works is anywhere from 27K to 100K resistance. And then on the secondary side, anywhere from 200K to about 500K. You can play with this on the secondary side, resistance. And then shunting the two at the top of the circuit, a .005 or 006 condenser. And what you've done basically is you've changed this IF circuit from basically an inductive coupling to an impedance coupling. And it works well enough to get the radio back on, track. And I just want to mention that some people may want to try that instead of, going through obviously this process of surgically, repairing the IF, because you can do it that way. So just to make sure that people know that that's an option. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I got a question. When you're trying to find the impedance of the transformer, does what effect does the secondary part have on the primary when you're doing that? Have you noticed any interaction?
Generally, as long as you get the mica sheet out of the circuit, the one side generally doesn't seem to affect the other. The inductance meter isn't putting a lot of power through the coil, so it's probably the magnetic field isn't that strong.
You remove both capacitors on the input and the output? Or
Yeah, I measure one at a time, so I'll go to the input side, hook it across the coil with, and get the inductance, then go to the other side and measure that inductance.
Can I make a comment?
Sure. Yeah. I learn something new every time I come out to the club, so.
No, absolutely not.
There's a wrinkle to the Shango method, which I've got exactly 30 seconds worth of thought into this. But there's a wrinkle to the Shango method which might make it preferable, and that's to put in a variable capacitor, to tune up the variable capacitor to tune the radio to the proper IF frequency, measure the capacitor, and then substitute in. That wrinkle is, could you put up the picture that shows the two winding packs with the slugs of the transformer?
But you'd have to power up the radio to do that.
Yeah, okay, that's it. Now, you can imagine in altering the tuning of that slug, you're also moving it up and down within the coil. And what this is doing is also changing the coupling coefficient between the two, and I've actually run into this in a radio. What happens is the value of capacitor you put in is more critical than you would think. Because if you put in too small a capacitor, you have to crank the cores to their higher inductance, brings them closer together, and narrows the bandwidth of the radio. If you put in too large a capacitor, you have to move them too far apart, and you widen the bandwidth of the radio. Depending upon its original design, that may or may not be desirable. So the point is that Shango's method may get you closer by measuring the actual capacitor so that you don't have to move the slugs to retune the radio, but maybe more than a quarter turn or so. But if you have to move them more than a couple of turns, you're going to mess up the bandwidth. So that capacitance value, and the ones I've measured, has ranged anywhere between 100 picofarads and about 120 picofarads. And you think, it's not very much. Yeah, it's pretty close. I could put in 120. If I can only find 100 in my junk box, I'll put it in. But you'll find the bandwidth of the radio will sound wrong when you're done with the realignment. So get it as close as you can.
How do you measure it if it's already bad?
This is after you ripped out the original mica.
Yeah.
You've put a variable capacitor on the primary and a variable capacitor on the second. This is Shango's method, all right, as he well describes in his video. Yeah. And you've retuned those two capacitors without moving the slugs. You've restored the tuning of the radio. Then you take out the variable capacitors and measure them, and then substitute in. And you may have to pile a couple capacitors in. You may have to put in 100 puff, and then scrape around for a 10 puff, and then even a little gimmick twisted wire thing to bring it a little closer to what the original, your measurement of the variable capacitor you put in comes out. So that's my comment.
Okay, and I mean, that's a good point. I mean, I found that most of the time this does work well enough that it hasn't really affected the tuning. But I actually had an interesting experiment, the radio that I mentioned before, where RCA actually published the capacitor values in the can. When I measured the inductance and I did my method, I was within 10% of what they had published. And yeah, maybe 10% is good enough, maybe it isn't. But yeah, so that is a good point.
In concert with what Neville is saying, many of us will tune a radio, we'll align a radio thinking, let's get it exactly at 455, because that's where it's got to be. But what you find out sometimes is that when you tune it exactly to 455, both the primary and the secondary, the audio quality, just as Neville was saying, narrows out. And what happens essentially is the audio doesn't sound full, doesn't sound rich the way it was intended to sound. What you can do is either wobulate, which we can talk about at another meeting, where you basically set up essentially the two IF transformers to broaden out the bandwidth of the tuning of the radio. Or you can make one, let's say, 450 and maybe 460. And basically with that, essentially, you're broadening out the tuning of the whole thing. Now, you'll still be able to tune the radio signals pretty accurately, but you'll find that the audio quality coming out of these little 4-inch loudspeakers sounds so much better when you broaden out that bandwidth. Just as a note, okay?
So, a question.
Yeah.
Miller, do they use regular capacitors in the new old stock ones?
I've seen mica sheets in the couple millers that I have, just like the original OEMs did. The only ones that I haven't seen, there's not that many that address the problem. Most of them just copied the same design that the manufacturers did. They just used mica sheets, just like the originals. Merit was the one I most often see. There was one by a company called Workman that had ceramic disc capacitors tucked inside under the can. And
No one is used, because I just got 2 new old stock
Yeah.
transformers, no one.
yeah, now,
Those that likely have.
most likely have
Yeah.
mica sheets inside.
They can still very well.
They
be
can
good.
still get it, and it may last you another 20 years.
Yeah.
It may go in 5 years. It just depends on,
Where they store.
yeah, the condition that the radio,
Seal it up.
yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
you
but-
take a chance, you take a chance with a new old stock.
Yeah.
You said we had 450 of them and 46 were good. That's a pretty high percentage.
Yeah, and
Just check continuity across the primary and across the secondary.
Yeah.
Because if you look at the circuit, you only have a coil, right?
Right.
Circuit amount of resistance of coil. But let's say the capacity, let's say the 2 capacitors now are compromised with that silver mica. You're not gonna get the coil resistance, you're gonna get you're gonna get a solid connection, but like your unity is you're gonna be like, not infinite, but like, a very low resistance. It'll be like 1 ohm, 10 ohms, whatever it is, because the silver is what's conducting. You don't want that silver to be conducting. It's supposed to be separated by the mica sheets. And when the silver kind of travels across the sheet, now it's shunting out the coil.
So it lowers the resistance.
Yes, exactly. So if you check with your ohm meter when you get a brand new one, the primary and the secondary, if you get about 19 ohms across each, that's what I found, 19, 20 ohms.
19, 20 ohms?
That means it's good.
So that should be easy, with just an ohm meter.
Just check your new one. That's all you have to do, and then you'll know it's good.
19 to 20 ohms.
Yeah, that's what you should get, primary and secondary.
I thought my notebook.
yeah, Scott?
Is
Yeah.
the incidence of silver mica disease the same for AM and FM radios?
That's a good question. I do have a couple of AM/FM radios that have silver mica disease. In fact, one of them is almost totally silent on AM, and FM still plays, but it's starting to get static and FM dropping out.
Yeah, I rebuilt the roll up because of that.
Yeah, so it's the same?
I don't know if the rate of failure is the same. I've heard some people say that the FM capacitors are small.
Transformers for an AM/FM radio are totally different for the AM and FM.
Yeah.
So do you mostly find them in the AM section?
Well, and the theory I've heard is, and again, I'm not an expert, I'm learning like everyone else,
They're
but,
definitely more prone to AM, but I don't know why that's.
well, the theory I've heard is the AM capacitance has to be bigger for the resonance because it's a lower frequency. So because there's a larger silver piece.
Everybody's talking one side
Yeah.
here. Yeah, maybe one person talking at a time. That'd be great, because I don't hear anybody when everyone's talking.
Yeah. Okay, so the theory I've heard is, and again, I haven't dissected an FM IF transformer to see it for myself, but from what I was told, the FM IF transformers, the capacitor tends to be smaller. So on the mica sheet, it's a smaller pad of silver. So there's more distance between the sections. So it's harder and maybe takes longer for that migration to happen. So maybe the prevalence is less on FM, but I can tell from personal experience it does happen. Not as often for my own personal collection, although most of my radios are AM only, but I do have AM/FM radios. One of them is completely silent on both AM and FM. I get nothing but static. And the other one, AM is silent, FM still works with occasional static cropping in. So it's on its way out too. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
That's the answer. Right? Well, China.
Joe, we want to thank you. Joe, we want to thank you and your assistant for putting in the time and the work that you did today. And again, we apologize for the Plan B going on C without having the big screen. It won't happen again. So we have a small auction over here on the left of battery sets and some electric sets too. John, you have a question?
I had a comment that Miller had a famous slogan, if you've got the time, you've got the IF.
Very good, John, very good. All right, folks, safe home. Please support your club. Come out Sunday. Come on out Sunday. Parsippany PAL. Bring some money. I'm sure there's something you need. Our next meeting is not at InfoAge. It is at where is it? No, it's at Bowen Hall. And we will be show and tell, and that is April 10th. April 10th. Show and tell, Bowen Hall, April 10th. Thank you. Safe home. We did it.
That's all, folks. Have a good night.